Hi guys, we got thumbs up on the recording here today. I'm Tamika Schilbe and I have two of my besties here with me and I'm so thrilled that they're here with me today. Who do we got?
Okay, I'm Carolyn Burke.
I'm Brenda Dowell.
Yay, Brenda Dowell and Carolyn Burke. Okay, so we have a fun, I'm kind of nervous about this today because this discussion, I realized after we talked about it a couple weeks ago about doing this, and then once we scheduled, I was like, oh my gosh, this is deep shizzle here. And I'm kind of like nervous about it because it's deep stuff. So we're talking today about sistering. And even if you're a man, I think that because lots of the community are men, I want to say that this isn't really gender specific, although with all of the Weinstein and the Me Too campaign and some of these other sexual assaults that are kind of getting really obvious in the culture, we're clearing out some old energy and bringing in some new energy. So there is, I don't want to take away from that for women and how sistering is even more important right now than ever for women, but it's a practice that we'll talk a little bit more about today and get into our own stories and examples of it. But if you have felt lost, if you felt confused, if you felt like you can't handle the changes that are going on in the world, if you feel directionless, if you feel like you don't have a purpose, this is where sistering is such an important practice. And because we were talking about this the other day, the three of us, we were sort of like how does this feel so manageable? And sometimes it doesn't. It's not like, oh, we got this all figured out. I'm not saying that. But how does this feel so manageable? And it is the sistering, in our case, with females that makes this all manageable. But again, this is applicable to men too. And so if you are lacking that, we're going to talk about what is sistering. And we're going to also talk about the Celtic Vow of Friendship, which is there are 6 different pieces in that Celtic Vow of Friendship. And just to make this a little bit fun and a little bit interesting, pick a number between 1 and 6. So if you're watching, pick a number between 1 and 6. And you might find that 2 numbers come up for you. And that's going to be the one that holds a special gift for you, a special message for you. So I'm going to read the Celtic Vow of Friendship, and then we'll talk a little bit more about all this stuff. Here it is. I honor your path. I drink from your well. I bring an unprotected heart to our meeting space. I hold no cherished outcome. I will not negotiate by withholding, and I am not subject to disappointment. Whoa. Okay, so see which number you had picked you used your intuition. Number 1, I honor your path. Number 2, I drink from your well. Number 3, I bring an unprotected heart to our meeting place. Number 4, I hold no cherished outcome. Number 5, I will not negotiate by withholding. And number 6, I am not subject to disappointment. Ha! This is big. Feels like weighty, doesn't it? It feels like full and wow, like in some ways radical, in some ways not at all. So Carolyn, let's talk a little bit more about this term sistering before we move forward with the Celtic Vow of Friendship, because I want to honor Glennon Doyle Melton.
Mm-hmm. So she brought the term sistering forward for us. And when you are building a home, you've probably heard of the word of a joist is something that's like a really important part of holding up a house. And what happens is if a joist gets weak, which it does over time because of holding up a structure, what they do is they bring in another piece of wood right beside the joist, first to the left. And then if that doesn't make it strong enough, then to the right. And what this is called is sistering. It's a sistering joist. So it comes and it stands strong beside the joist, just like we do with our sisters when we are in need of help. We come and we just stand strong beside them and we sister them. And sometimes we're the one in the center needing the sistering, and sometimes we're standing strong on either side of our sisters.
It's such a beautiful concept. And it comes from the traditionally masculine world, which is really interesting, right? It comes from, it's a builder's term.
Yeah.
That's
like
pretty
carpentry.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're feeling, this is why I said if you're feeling lost right now, or what's going on in the world just feels so heavy, that is the weight is just too much for any of us to bear alone. And there's been a big push in our culture for, especially in the new age movement, self-development, of going it alone, like being independent. And it's me, like, what can I get? What can I get? I think a lot of that needed to happen because, especially women, we were taught to just give, and not give back to ourselves. So that needed to happen. But sometimes we can take it too far, and it's like, I'm a lone soldier and I'm in charge of my life by myself. I don't need anybody. And it couldn't be more false that we don't need each other. And literally, when the weight of the world is bringing us down, we can use this concept. But the reason I said I was so nervous about this is that since we decided to do this today, I've been really reflecting on my relationships, and some of them, have had, there's the fabric or the foundation has just crumbled under some of those relationships. And it's a point of deep sadness for me. And I don't dwell there. I don't live there because I've got stuff to do. But there have certainly been people that I've loved in my life that aren't in my life anymore because we weren't able to figure that out. The weight of our challenges was so heavy that together, and I take half responsibility for those situations, we weren't able to bear it. So so that's why this is a big thing. And I just want to say that nobody gets this perfect. And we have certainly had a lot of people asking us, how do you do this? How are you guys so close? How are you guys working together all the time? How are you able to work together and play together and vacation together and do all of these things together and not drive each other crazy? Like, how is this possible in your life? And so as much as we've made mistakes and continue to, I think that we have the secret sauce. Whatever the heck that is, I don't know. Anyways, I don't really mean that, but and I do mean that. I do and I don't. We make mistakes, but we certainly have been practicing this. There's a kind of, and I was talking to my 21-year-old niece the other day, and we were really talking about it for her age group, and she really got it. And she was saying, there's a security about having your sisters there that isn't there when it's a partner sister. Like if you're a lesbian, it could be a partner sister, like a romantic partner sister, or if it's a man, if you're heterosexual. So she was saying it's your sisters that are just your friends. As a woman, when they've got your back, you can do whatever you want in the world. And you can be you can be all the ways that you're you. You can be confused one day and an expert the next day. You can fall on your face. You can rise and shine high and all of this stuff. And you feel secure because they've got your back. And I thought that was super wise from her generation's perspective also. So anything else about that you guys are thinking before we get into the...
Makes me actually just tear up as you're talking about it. Like it just feels that sacred and that special. And so many things come to mind as you're saying it, where I think about certain friends where I haven't talked to them in months, and then I pick up the phone and they're like, "Hi, how are you?" And then I can barely choke out like a word. Okay, what's going on? What's going on? Okay, you tell me what's going on. I'm just flooded with the power of sisters.
Yes. And I love what you're saying, because you're making a distinction between those sisters that we're living and breathing with day in, day out. And also there's all kinds of levels, like that sisterhood where you can pick up the phone. You haven't talked to each other for months or years even. And you don't expect, you're not like pissed off at each other because you haven't been in contact, and you're just like, here I am. And here's what's going on. I'm just laying it out. And
here's the raw truth.
And that if you can drop into yourself with those long distances in the way or in between, that's some special stuff.
Yeah,
sure is.
What were you going to say, Brenda? I think I cut you off.
The sistering and sistering not, like being able to be real in a lot of the relationships that I've had over the years, especially with women, is the ones where I didn't feel I could pick up the phone if we hadn't talked in 6 months. They've kind of fallen away because of the expectations, I think probably on both of our sides, and they just haven't worked out. And so they've kind of slid out of my life a little bit more over the years to more authentic, real, where I can be authentic and real in this relationship or in these relationships, because now I know I can pick up the phone to any of my close friends and just say, hey, I'm falling apart, and be real.
Yeah.
So,
and being real is the key, isn't it? Like not pretending, excuse me. And this is hard sometimes, like we have such pressure to be like, everything's great. But we can, and everything may be great that day, but the truth is, yesterday wasn't great, or last week it wasn't great. And when we can really drop into that place with each other and not pretend, it's something amazing.
Yeah.
And another, on that line, another one for me is that I can't pretend that the past didn't happen anymore unless we've cleared it, because I think I've been in this process with you guys too of clearing and clearing and clearing. So whatever comes up, it doesn't have to take a long time, guys. Like if your life is as busy, ours is too, it's taking the time to say, you know what, this doesn't sit right. Can we clear this? Can we talk this through and move this out? For me, I can't fake it anymore. I can't pretend that the past didn't happen and just carry on and, everything's fine, and let's just put a smile on our face and just da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, unless we've both come to the table and said, I take responsibility for me and I hear you and I get where your pain is in this. And the other person can do that too, that exact same meeting each other. That's the joist, isn't it?
Yeah.
To hold up that structure, because if you can't both come there, it's, for me anyway, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I can't fake it anymore. And I don't know if it's the truth work and research for the book these last years, but I can't fake it anymore. And it's like, don't even bother. Like we can have a polite passing, but I'm not opening my heart, because I've tried in the past and it wasn't safe.
Yeah.
Which takes a lot of work too, because I come with my stuff. And so to come to the table and sister each other, it's like I have to take ownership of my stuff and understand what's triggering me so that I can be in a real relationship with you in order to work through it. So, yeah.
That's the thing. And not everyone can do that, right? Mm-hmm. Not everyone can look in the mirror and own their stuff. And myself included, I'm not saying I got that down pat. I'm not saying that at all. But that's kind of a prerequisite if you're desiring that depth.
Yes,
absolutely.
So, I really want to hold space for people that can't do that, because not all of us were raised in an open environment. Not all of us were raised to look at the shadows inside of ourselves. And anyone that can't do that is like, we can only do so much too at certain times. And if we don't trust the other person, like there's been people that haven't trusted me and I haven't trusted them. If we can't trust the person enough to be vulnerable, then there's no point.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. I want to come back to this. So if I forget, you guys, the thing that I'm thinking about is like what prevents us from sistering, and maybe that'll come up as we go through the vow. So the Celtic Vow of Friendship, the first one is I honor your path.
So what I think of when I think of honoring your path is how geese fly in formation. So, the V formation, there's always a goose. My daughter was telling me, no, it should be goose is plural and geese is singular. And I was like, okay, well, sure. It made sense to her. But the goose at the front, at the beginning of the formation, there's all these other geese that are flying in formation and V behind them. And we all take turns in that formation. So the first one gets tired and he comes to the back of the line, or she comes to the back of the line, and the next one moves up. And we take turns in this path that we're on together to say like, okay, I'm going to let you lead today because you really need to shine. And I really want to see you succeed. And I'm over here behind here if you need me. And so you're really like cheerleading your other sisters to go and do their thing, and you're not jealous or in a competitive grind with them. It's like, I'm here behind, and they're saying to you, and I know it's going to be your turn too soon, and I'm going to be cheerleading you and saying you can do it even if you feel like you can't. And then let's say you're in the opposite, that you're like, I'm exhausted and I am not leading anymore. And like, I can speak to this in terms of parenting on my own at times. I certainly have a lot of support around me, but sometimes at nighttime, it's just me and the kids, and putting up that red flag and calling one of these two to say, I'm done. I'm so tired. I can't do this right now. And getting those words of encouragement to say, you know what? You don't have to do it right now. You can go to rest right now. Tomorrow's a new day. And it's like, that's them leading me, right? So they're up there at the front, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pause back here while I flap my wings a little less hard. And I take some of that trail wind, Mm-hmm. So I think honoring the path of others is probably one of the ways that we prevent, like you said, Tamika, like, or I don't know how you said it, but like some of the ways we don't do it is we get competitive, and we don't want our sisters to succeed, or we don't necessarily realize that we're doing it, but we're thinking, well, look at her doing that. I want to do that. I'm all that too. Yeah. And we don't give them a chance to shine, or we don't promote them. So I feel like in our sisterhood that we really want to promote each other. We really want to say, you're doing this great thing and it's yours. It's unique to you. And I'm here to support you.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. And it's, sometimes we don't have the same gifts either. Like, and it takes a lot of recognizing that, doesn't it? That it's okay that I don't know how to do everything.
Yes.
Just makes me go, ah.
Some of the pressure's off.
Yeah, the pressure's off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there's a lot there with this, I honor your path, and why is it that sisters, we have this competitive thing built into us? Why is that? Like, why do we have this? Do men do the same thing with each other? Do they compete with each other in the same way? Like, there might be a one-upmanship that's, part of their circles. I don't know. But one of the things that I'm very aware of is how some women, myself included, in some points in my life, will put the relationship with a male ahead of the sisters. And that's an unlearning and an unraveling that I've had to do my whole life, I think. I feel like I was taught that in a lot of ways, including the culture. It's like, drop everything when the man's in the room. Even in families, sometimes the man can do something in the family and everybody just looks the other way and says, okay, you can treat us this way, or you can do whatever. When the female does that same thing, it's like she's taken to task that bitch. Right?
Yep.
So, and this is crumbling, and it's so exciting to me. So this whole the patriarchy is literally crumbling right in front of our eyes, and nobody's going to be left behind. Not men, not women, like nobody's going to be left behind. It's going to be inclusive. But I think I have to recognize that in myself too, the competing and how we do that sometimes with each other as
Most
women.
Definitely. Yeah. Big part of my past. Absolutely. Always in competition with other women, especially. Yeah. And if you get it, that means I can't have it. So even energetically to undermine someone else's success because I felt it took away from mine. And so, man, that's huge. And I continue to learn that, but huge unlearning of ways to be in more collaboration and support. So, yeah.
That's amazing, B. It's scarcity, isn't it?
That's just going to say definitely. It feels like scarcity, right? Like there's just not enough to go around. And exactly. So I got to grasp what I have instead of being like, wait a second, we all can succeed, right?
Exactly. There's enough. Yeah.
Which is ironic because this is what I was saying at the beginning. This feels so massive. The well of sisterhood is so deep. We were talking about this the other day, like when a woman is sick or when something's going on with somebody, it's like, we're there. We're at the bedside. Like what can we do? We are there. We show up. And I don't know if, I mean, in a general sense, every man is different. I'm not trying to say that men are like this and women are like this. I know that's not true, but I don't know that men have that same kind of thing. I don't think they enjoy that same kind of thing. In a lot of the men that I've known and in my circles, the men that I've been close to in my life have come to us, the women, for that nurturing and that closeness and the sistering. They're getting it from women.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you guys find that, or is that?
Totally. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 2 is I drink from your well.
And so about receptivity and not having, as you said, T, not having to do it on our own. And so feeling for most of my life that I had to create my own life, my own path, and do it myself. And what I'm finding as I've developed greater and greater friendships, like with the two of you, is that on the days where I am just on my knees, especially around my mom, feeling the feelings of losing who I know my mom to be. And some days it takes me to my knees, and I'm just like calling you guys going, okay, I can't do this. I can't do it alone. I need your support. I need your love. I need your energy. And you guys jump in with both feet, and not to take away or fix anything, but to hold the space to sister me so that I can gather the strength and what I need and drink from your well while I replenish my own. And so it happens so often. And then other days, I'm feeling really strong and secure and really spacious in my energy. And one of those days, perhaps one of you two call, and then it just becomes a reciprocal. We drink from the same well. So it's incredible. Yeah.
So beautiful. It makes me think of your catcher's mitts hands, Brenda. One time, Carolyn and I had been through something really difficult. And we come from this really difficult situation. Then we were staying at Brenda's house that night, and we literally sat down, and she had her hands on her knees, and she was like, what do you guys need? And it was like catcher's mitt. It was like, I got one of you here, and I got one of you here, and what do you need? And we were drinking from that well. I drained your well over those next few days. But yeah, we didn't, I guess I didn't drain your well, but I'm joking.
Never.
Yeah. It's that, what can I do? What do you need? And being able to receive.
Yes.
That's huge. And then I think about, recently when Jai died, another example is Carolyn got on the phone with my niece, Cindy, and they arranged for her to come and be here when I needed the help more than I have ever needed help in my life. That's what it feels like. I don't know that I've ever been through something so difficult. And it may seem like, I've had death in my life in other ways, but it was a number of circumstances coming together that made it so difficult. And Cindy, sistered, absolutely. And I drank from that well. She was just on. And, it was transformative, I think, for both of us in lots of ways that we would never have imagined.
Yeah.
Number 3 is I bring an unprotected heart to our meeting place. And I think we've already touched on this, but it's really that vulnerability that we come with, and we're able to be vulnerable. And if we can't be vulnerable, then we're probably protecting our hearts in some ways. And this isn't easy. And you don't need to be this with everyone either. You don't need to be this with every person. Like, be selective with your heart. Some people don't deserve, really literally, they don't deserve to see the whole contents of your heart. You don't owe that to everyone. Yeah. But those places where it does feel safe and reciprocal, it's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And I think the unprotected heart for me is about taking responsibility for myself. I had a situation last week where, trying to make this real, I had a situation last week where there was someone I was working with that was doing some work that was related to my book, and supporting, promoting, and doing some things. And I had to say, I was so fixed on how I wanted to see it done. And I had to step back I actually cried about it. I know it sounds like really weird, but you're working on something this long, it becomes, it has a life of its own. And I had to sit back and I said, and then I had to come back to her and say, I am so triggered right now. I am so triggered by my stuff. And, you know, when I said this and when I said this, that's because I'm totally triggered. I am like, this is tender for me, and I'm shaking just talking to you about it, is what I had to say to her, and not had to, wanted to come clean. Again, this is what I mean by cleaning it out. And then, because otherwise that work she's doing becomes dirty in a way, because it's had this edginess around it, and I just like things being clean. Not always in my house. But, yeah. So to me, that's an example of that unprotected heart, is that I'm going to take responsibility for how I feel. I'm not going to blame you for how I feel. That's not okay. I mean, sometimes you screw up, we all screw up, and please take responsibility if you screw up. But otherwise, I'm going to use my own understanding of myself to take responsibility for my feelings.
You know, that it's powerful what you're saying.
Excuse me.
It makes me also think about that place where you bring your unprotected heart is also with professionals, around sistering professionals. And I had that this morning where I had a counseling session and could be with someone who could hear me cry and open up. And it's like another place where my heart is unprotected, so that I can then be in the world with others more vulnerable and more open, because I've had a chance to let the contents out of whatever's going on in my world. So it was a good reminder for me of that. It doesn't have to be a counselor. It could be your massage therapist or some sister who loves you and holds you up and supports you, even as a professional.
So true, because sometimes we don't have somebody in real time that can do it that way and hold it in such a container.
Yes. And if I could say, just in coming into relationship, especially like with the two of you and what we have created, it took me time to trust that you could hold the contents of my heart. And so in the working through of our relationship and what we have built, it was a process, and continues to be, as I learn that you are who you say you are, and you will hold me in sacred space and honor what I'm feeling. And it continues to grow from that, because I have learned to trust what you say and who you are and what I feel. And then I can share that vulnerable heart and open up and say, hey, this is what's happening. So it's a time thing too.
Oh, I love that. That's really important, because again, if there's anyone watching this that's like, I can't do that, there might be mistrust because of what we said, of all the competition, and because of it hasn't been safe with women in a way for many, many people, you know. And then there's our primary relationship too. Like, what was that like, you know? How did we learn with our primary, like our mothers and our sisters, and how did we learn what happened when we were vulnerable? Like, how did that go? And maybe it went well, or maybe it didn't. So, you know, not to blame our moms, because it's not their fault. They got all the same stuff we do, right? Only worse, probably, because it was older. I hold no cherished outcome. That's number 4 of the Celtic vow.
So we talked about that a little bit, but for me, this is about I hold no cherished outcome, as I don't have expectations. So if I have been in situations in the past where if I haven't called, or I haven't kept in touch, or I've turned down invitations to meet up and do things over and over again, then there's this expectation that I'm not following through, or I'm not being a good friend. And so for me, being in a sistering relationship, there are no expectations. That you show up when you can show up, you're there when you can be there. And usually when the shit hits the fan, that's when people are there for you, right? And that's where I felt like, you know, I'm having surgery, and Tamika comes and moves into the house for a couple of days and looks after the kids and meals, and I can't get out of bed, right? So it's like that's like the I didn't have that idea that that was going to happen. And then it did happen. So I hope that makes sense. But I feel like that if I have too much expectation on somebody, that it's not necessarily, it's not how I want to live, with expectations on myself or putting expectations on others. And then the flip side of that is like, it just comes rushing in without the expectation. For me, that's what I've experienced.
Wow.
Yes. Powerful.
Aha. Yeah.
Oh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Number 5 is I will not negotiate by withholding.
Oh yeah, that's a good one for me. Past relationships come to mind, and I had very clear expectations of and what I would say is wants or needs that I wouldn't articulate, I wouldn't ask for, but I would use them to negotiate by withholding intimacy or contact or energy or attention. And so always using that as a tool. And it's incredibly humbling looking back now at how often I did that. Instead of asking and being in my vulnerable heart and saying what I needed, I would actually use the withholding of something to get my needs met. And so, without even them even knowing perhaps what my expectations were. So yeah, very humbling. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It makes me think of a past relationship that I had where the silent treatment was the calling card for you've let me down.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys have had that.
Oh yes.
Yes. It wasn't a relationship with a sister. It was with partners.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Strong tactics. And in my opinion, from my perspective, for me, unfair.
Yeah. Unfair. Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess as I'm saying that, I'm like, boys don't cry, children are to be seen and not heard. You're all the messages that some of our brothers have had around not being vulnerable. And there's that amazing book, I forget the author, but The Mask of Masculinity is just an amazing book about this. So check that out. But it is a mask. And so then how do they take that off and be vulnerable? All these things we're talking about, be vulnerable and be open and clear stuff. And it's not so that you're like doing the relationship thing all the time. Like I think all of us have enough traditionally masculine, I don't mean male, but masculine energy where we're getting stuff done in our life. We're not sitting around crying all the time. Like we wouldn't be here in front of you if we were. Not talking about that ad nauseum processing everything. I'm talking about being able to say, you know what, that sucked. Can we talk this through? This hurt. This actually really hurt me. And let's work on it and not just defend ourselves. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
Work.
And maybe withholding is a tactic that is, for some people a way that they don't get enraged too. Like I'm thinking of certain people in my life who have gone underground so they didn't say or do something that they would have regretted later.
Yeah.
So we're all so different, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all kind of learning, like you said, like none of us have it mastered, but these are some amazing kind of values to like work towards, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Work on every day.
And when you say that, I know it's a little off topic, but I'm famous for that. Vows of like when we're in relationship and we really want to get close with someone, it's like, how do we want to do this? Talking about like, what do you value? What do I value? And is there a fit here? And how do we want to do this? Like I met a wonderful woman a few weeks ago, and her and I were working on some stuff and chatting and supporting each other. And she was bragging about something in her life, and I was like, yes, like I loved it. I was so there with her. Like I felt her excitement, her passion. I'm saying bragging because bragging is totally good, you guys. Like you should be able to brag with your sisters and they are like over the moon for you, even if they have to fake it a little bit because they're like, oh, I'm not doing that. They make a little bit inside, right? That's just normal. But then when she realized how far she was going with her excitement about what she was doing, she immediately backtracked and said, well, it's not that big of a thing. And I just said, no, stop. You stop. And you guys, I don't always do this perfect. I hope I'm not bragging about her bragging, but holding space for that. I was like, stop. And I said, I believe in sistering, and I do not downplay what you just said. Like, your passion and your dreams, go for it 100%. And I as long as we're in connection, I'm going to be behind you all the way. And I really felt that. And she said, thank you for saying that, because I know she's very intelligent. I know she felt the shift in her energy. So it's making a vow with each other. How do we want to be in this relationship? It's so beautiful. It's so deep, you guys. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. That's such a powerful example.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I want someone to do that to me. I want someone to say, no, you stop. You can do this. I'm here to own it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I, honestly, the things that we've created, the three of us, and, some of them have worked and some of them haven't worked. The things that we have created, whatever it is, whether it's anything, whether it's raising families or creating something in your work, or if you're a project manager doing that, or whatever you're creating, your art, we couldn't have done it without each other. I feel that anyway. It's like how I could have done it, but I would have struggled the whole way through. I would have doubted myself way more if I didn't have those joints on either side.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Number 6 is, I am not subject to disappointment. And I said to these women, when I read this, I was like, I don't agree with this one. And I'm just going to say that because I got assigned myself this one because I was like, I don't agree. Because I think it's a normal human emotion to feel disappointment. And it's really cool to be able to touch that and say to yourself, I'm disappointed, like when someone lets us down. But I also think, so after the feeling, then it's like, I'm not going to put my disappointment on you. I'm not going to tell you in such a shameful way that you've disappointed me. Like that's like a failure message. Like, you really failed me. Because in the grand scheme of things, we know that if something is not for us, it will move in a different direction. Like whether it's something as simple as you've got plans with your friend to go out for dinner, and then all of a sudden she's busy with something else, and you were so looking forward to this. It's like, don't put that on me, your disappointment. Like, because those feelings are ours to own when we feel disappointed in someone else. So I am not subject to disappointment. I think I would say I am not subject to making you wear my disappointment. I think there's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a dear friend who used to say to me, Brenda, your greatest source of disappointment will be your own expectations. And so for me, it has been the last 10 years, especially, just really sitting with, why am I disappointed? Well, I expected that from that person. And so whether I even articulated it to them or not, it was my expectation, not their willingness to give or do something. So it's been a huge, and continues to be a huge learning curve for me.
Was that Jack?
Yes, it was.
Oh, I love
knew
Jack.
Yes, it was.
Jack, wherever you are, we love you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
You knew how to love a woman. Oh, God. Jack's here.
He is.
Okay. Is there anything else, you guys, that we've missed? I think that was our plan.
Yeah, just it takes work. It's challenging and amazing all at the same time, and it continually makes me step into the reality and the wholeness of who I am to be in relationship with both of you, and I love it. And it drives me crazy at times, and I love it. It does, because I have to be real. I can't hide. I can't hide out in the basement in front of the fire. Well, I can, but not for the rest of my life. I like the willingness to own my stuff and take responsibility for me. So thank you both. Yeah.
I feel the same way. I feel like you guys know when something's up, and I can't just run away from it. And I love that. Ultimately, I love that. It's hard sometimes in the moment.
Yeah. Ditto. is what I'm going to say. And I think the rewards, like when you say the hard part, to me, it's like, yep. And the rewards are endless. Like when the help comes rushing in, when you feel not alone, when you feel uplifted, when you know that somebody's rooting for you and has your back, when, you know, you can just say, I don't know why I'm upset, but can you just listen to me for a second and tell me if you can help me sort this out, because I'm really upset. What is this? You know, it just feels like the rewards are magnificent.
Yes.
It's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ditto.
So true. All right. Well, you guys out there, thank you if you got to this point, you're amazing. You're an amazing sister or brother. Thank you for being with us today. And we would love to, we always we feel like we have a party and then we don't want to just leave the party and not have it reciprocal, which is why we're always asking for comments. If you're ever wondering that, why do they always want comments? Because it's like hosting a party and then leaving or something, saying, see you guys. Okay, we just had the party, but now we're gone. So it allows us to stay in touch and continue to chat about it and keep it alive. And if we've missed something or if you have something that you want to add to the discussion, it really keeps it alive. But who in your life is the sister goddess? Who is the one that has been sistering you, male or female? I would even say it's totally up to you who you want to. And you may have never even called it the Celtic vow. You may have not been talking about a vow that you were practicing, but who are you kind of practicing with this with already, and you didn't realize it? You might not be doing it all perfect. That's not possible. But who is that person? And name them. Put them out there in public and tell us about them so we can all shine our light and honor them for that gift, because it helps all of us. Mm-hmm. We'd love to hear that. Write it in the comments below. Have a beautiful day and sending so much love. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.